the point I really want to leave with you today is, where is your attention? Where is your attention? Because your attention, depending upon where you place it and the life you give it and the energy you put behind it, and then if you put your attention on something that gets you riled, and then if you take that rile and you put a lot, you have attachment to it, and you start presenting it as a position, it can really alter the way you are seeing the world, because the world, a lot of it is about perception. So I want to ask you something. I notice, and I open my eyes sometimes during prayer, because when there's a group, I'm always curious how the group is doing, and are people plugged in and pulled in. And I notice sometimes that some people don't close their eyes. Now, that's perfectly fine. No one's required to close your eyes during prayer. But let me tell you one of the reasons why I would encourage you to always close your eyes during prayer. Because when we close the outer eye, our inner eye can see better. When we close the outer eye, we are turning away from effect. We are turning away from the glitter, the political system, the upset, the one who can scream loudest. And so when we turn within and we go quiet, we get to decide what our inner landscape, what we want that to look like and feel like. And it really comes down to perception. You know, there was this master teacher, and he was sitting and he was having a cup of tea with his disciple. And outside the room where they were on the street, they heard these men arguing in a pretty loud, obnoxious kind of argument. And after a few moments, one of the men was stormed off and walked away. And this master teacher went back to having tea with his disciple. A few minutes later, one of the men that were in the argument walked into the room and said, you know, "Teacher, can I talk to you?" And chatted with him about how wrong the other guy was, and started delivering all the facts about what he did and his opinion about this person. And then he turns to the teacher and he says, "I'm right, right?" And the teacher looks at him and said, "Yep, you're right." And then they went back to having tea again with his disciple, and then that student, he was another student, left. And then the other man who had walked away came back, and he starts talking to the teacher, and he says, "Teacher, he was really obnoxious, and he took this position, and what does he think he is, and who does he think he is, and he can't be doing this, and he can't do this to me, and I'm right, right?" And the teacher said, "Yep, you're right." And then that man left happy. And then in came, and then he goes back to having tea with his disciple, and his disciple looked at the teacher and said, "Wait a minute. The first man came in and you told him he was right, and the second man came in and you told him he was right, and both can't be right, right?" And the teacher said, "Yep, you're right." This is so important. Right now, the world is in such a place that it wants your attention. Everything from corporations trying to sell you the next best gizmo, to the political parties. We have unrest, a racial unrest, in a way that some of us have never witnessed it. And then there are people who are using that in a way that is somewhat destructive. And then California is burning. The West Coast is burning. And we have lots of spiritual brothers and sisters on this coast. There are Science of Mind communities up and down the West Coast. So this is our family. So we have to decide what gets our attention. And then once we decide that, we, from a place of the highest wisdom that you can get to in any moment, you must decide where to place your alliance. Because staying neutral and coming from the whole you will make you more powerful. Yet, there are causes that still need our attention. So I'm not suggesting that you and I become like monks sitting on a meditation cushion and choosing not to have opinions about the world at large, because some things there are places for us to show up, for us to do, for us to help. But what I am saying to you is that depending upon how whole or not you are more potent or less potent. All right, I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Okay. What do you see here? Do you see an old man and an old woman? Or do you see characters, musicians that look like they have Mexican hats on, singing and playing a guitar? What do you see? What do you see here? Do you see a man looking at you or looking away from you? And this is the classic. And even though I know it's a classic, I always have to adjust my eyes. If you don't know, there's two pictures in here. Do you see a young woman, or do you see an elderly woman? What do you see? What you see is determined by three things: what you believe, who you are, and where you are placing your attention. This is very important for you and I to understand, because we come from, if we're not coming from a whole place, we are bringing just fractions of our attention. We might be coming from our pain, or coming from a story, or coming from, you had a favorite teacher in college or wherever, and that teacher was a radical something or other. And because you love them so much, you tend to think, oh, you have to align with that person. You must pay attention. You don't even, if we're awake enough, we won't even automatically align with each other. Not automatically. If we're awake enough, we will question always everything and everyone. And out of all the messed up things that happened in my family as a child, the one thing I got, one of the things, I got more than one thing. One of the best things I got from my father was question everyone and everything. Now, there is a little bit of a problem with that because it makes me walking around kind of suspecting everything. But then within that, I find freedom. But you're not to align with me because I'm the one speaking. What yours is to do is to ponder and say, do I agree? And then choose accordingly. Because we, and I'll speak for CSLNJ, we don't want to be in danger of groupthink. And groupthink is just where everyone gets on board and aligns and no one questions anything. And that's dangerous. That's actually a very dangerous way. Now, you want to take the best of what you can get and you want to align with things if it speaks to your heart and soul. But never do you want to just step up to the plate because we say so. You know, there is an old fashioned, there was a bumper sticker that I haven't seen in a while, and it's still very much real today. And the bumper sticker was, think globally, act locally. So let's turn that into something else. Let's turn it into think globally and heal locally. So the global thing is for you and I to not look at who we are as CSLNJ, who are we as New Jersey, who are we as Black or as white, who are we as United States. But if we believe that we are one with all there is, do we believe that? Is that something that at least you strive toward, that you're one with everything? Not too many hands going up, some, okay, I see a few. Because if we believe in the unity of all life, in oneness, then the who you are being and who I am being in every given moment affects the whole. You see, there's actually no way to think in part. We think we can. We think we're individuals, but any sense of segregation that you might experience, or that's not what I meant. Separation is what I meant. Any sense of separation is actually not real. Now it causes a lot of upset because in a sense of separation, we're fussing in there. But truth be told, you can't actually separate. We're either whole or we're not. You are whole and one with the whole, or you are not. And so everything you do, all of who you are being, affects the collective. There's an old story from Greg Braden, and now it's kind of known a lot. I don't mean this particular story, but when Greg Braden was really one of the first teachers, he's a scientist, I don't remember what kind of scientist, and he was really talking about the power of thought and prayer and how it impacts the collective. And he told a story a long time ago. He went out to a reservation somewhere, a Native American reservation, where there hadn't been rain in a long, long time. And he was meeting with the chief of that tribe, I guess. I think it was the chief. And they walked out to the plains, and he was going to witness this chief do a prayer for rain. And so they walk out there, and the chief goes into a quiet place, and he does his thing, never saying anything out loud. And then he says, "Okay, let's go." And Greg Braden said, but you didn't do anything. He goes, "Oh yeah, I did." And he said, "What did you do?" He said, "I stood there and I imagined my feet in mud. I prayed from rain." See, that's when we work from the whole. We work from the whole. I can tell you with all confidence that there are people here within this community, we're all not going to agree on what's important. What if we had to choose to focus our attention on one thing right now, we would probably be hard pressed to figure out what one cause should we get behind. Right? Do you get that? I mean, there are so many things. But to be able to stand next to a spiritual brother and sister, and I know because Joe Schneider and I, we had a lively conversation the other night, and must choose to agree to disagree. There's certain things we're not going to agree on, but that doesn't have to take away for how you show up. You and I must show up as the whole, because who you are being is what law is acting upon. There's a little booklet written by Ernest Holmes, and some of you have it. I think probably some of you have it. It's called Thoughts Are Things. See, you can't slice two sides of a coin and separate them. We can't separate who we are from how we demonstrate. You must look at yourself. And we've talked about this so many times. Your life tells you what you believe, and because you look around, and if there's discord, or if there's a lack of prosperity, if whatever that is, you can look and you can say to yourself, I must not be believing in myself as worthy. I must be making someone else responsible for what's upset. So you look at that thing, and here's the beauty of it, though. We just think, now what do I have to do? Who do I have to be to change that outcome? That's the same globally. Who do you have to be to impact and shift the world and what's important to you? Who do you have to be? Because your beingness, your full essence is what Spirit is working through, right? Remember this? God works through us, as us, as us. The thing itself, right? The thing itself works as us. There's no other way that it works. So if we're seeing that we have angered Mama Gaia to the point that the fires are raging out of control, where do we look? Should we look at, the corporations and what they've done wrong? Should we look at, maybe it's the people in California, maybe it's their fault? What do we look at? If we look at racism, what do we look at? Whose fault is that? Who do we blame for that? If we look at the political climate, whose fault is that? Who do we blame for that? And all of those kind of inquiries will lead us to separation and disempower me from showing up in the fullness of my being. The who I am now affects my tomorrow. Who you are now affects your tomorrow. Does that make sense? Does it? You get that? So we're never outside of ourselves, ever. If there is something that you are noticing outside of yourself that you're not good with, then you get to ask yourself, who do I have to be to change that? Now, I'm going to do something we haven't done in a while. I want to see if anyone has a question. We're not going to go into commentary, but if anyone has a question about this, and if you do, I invite you to raise your hand and let me know so we can have a little bit of a discussion, or if any piece of this needs greater clarity. No question? No clarity needed? There you are.
I have a question, which of course I know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it for someone who doesn't want to ask it. So if my life is demonstrating what I believe, how do I get what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing? Because I don't feel like I'm doing it on purpose.
Right.
right? So how do I then, what is the first thing that I should do? My life is demonstrating what I believe. I don't like what I see.
Right.
So what is the first thing I do to shift that?
I could pay you for that, what do you
You're
call it? For that segue. Okay. Does everybody get what Evelyn is asking? Okay. Depends upon what you're seeing, depends on how strongly you feel about what you're seeing, depending upon what it is. And this, I am answering you, but I'm just gonna do it by way of expressing or telling you a story. This is now the book that I'm reading. So now I'm up to, so you want to talk about race. And I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. It's painful. I'm joking. I do know why I'm doing it. I'm very clear about why I'm doing it. But she says in the beginning of the book, she says straight out, if you want to know something is racist, if a Black person says it's racist, so shut up. And I'm like, ugh, right? And I have this reaction. And I'm like, okay, just suck it up. Just suck it up, because I have to learn. So when I am confronted with the world that I'm not pleased with, and right now I'm confronted, believe it or not, the first thing I do is I own it. I take ownership. And I would say I take responsibility, but I want you to be careful, because I don't want if you think taking responsibility means taking blame, that's not what I mean. We are responsible for creating, or we are responsible for how we respond. Both are equally important. But when something lands in me, hands down, the first thing I do is own it, because it cannot interrupt my peace unless I agree with it or believe it. If I need to, if it's appropriate for that instance, I do my forgiveness work. I do my forgiveness work. And it might be forgiving myself. If I judge it, which probably I've been in a lot of judgment lately, because I don't know about you. There's a lot of things going on I'm not happy about. But what I won't do is I won't judge myself for judging. Everybody get that? Everyone's gonna judge. There's no way I am not going to be in judgment about some of the messed up things I'm seeing. But the only way I can begin to heal that and bring it into wholeness is to not judge the judge, not judge how I'm judging. Because then I'm moving into acceptance. And when I move into acceptance, I move into integration. When I move into integration, I begin to have power over how I see it. And it goes back to my perception. Because if I have experience of wholeness and I see it as that, I am going to be more potent. Now, on the local side, I'm still going to do my work. For example, the White Fragility Group, I'm still going to go off and I'm still going to do my work, and I'm going to read my books, and I'm going to do what I can do locally. But globally, and now I'm thinking of globally as how I am one with all that is, I am going to stay in my practice. I'm going to stay remembering it is God as me, and I'm going to stay in a place of peace. And then, as I look back out, I will feel more potent about how I can make a change. I want to tell you behind the scenes, your facility, your White Fragility facilitators, they are working their blessed butts off to try to be worthy of being in this sacred conversation. And we are working hard, hard. Nothing simple, not for any single one of us. And I say that to you because that's us doing the local work so we can have a global impact. In order to have a global impact, You must show up as whole as you can at any given moment. Please believe me, if you are bitter, clear up the bitterness. If you are constantly finding fault and blaming, clear it up inside. If you are just objecting to so many things, look to who you have to be to find something. And I gotta tell you, I'm in a position right now where I am looking at people who are very different from us, and I'm learning to love in a new way. I don't know how to tell you this without being rude. Let me think. I'll say it this way. I am now surrounded by people who I do not share their political views. I'll just say it that way. And that leaves you guessing whatever that is. But I'm learning that they are loving, beautiful people. They are loving, beautiful people. And anyway, so I'm actually growing, being grown and stretched to accept on a larger scale. And I believe that's going to have me show up in a more potent way. Because the last thing you and I want to do is getting on a team that stands against. We don't want to get on a team that stands against. Does that make sense? Is there another question, a short one or anything that anyone has that you want to ask? I don't see a hand. Okay. Okay. So here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to become as whole as you can in any given moment by doing the work and doing it constantly, which is not unlike praying ceaselessly. It's the same thing. Stay awake. Monitor your mind. Monitor your judgments. Monitor your reactions. Pay attention to them. Look at them. Read them. When I have, and I have clients that I do coaching programs with. And one of the first things I do is I have them in a journal track their judgments. I have them track them for a week before I'll work with them. And by the time they get to me, they're often exhausted. They're exhausted because they get to see where their mind has been busy. And I'm asking you to be that person. You're going to want to still do the right thing and to still put legs under your passion. I would never tell you not to do that. Vote according to your values. Please do that. Act according to your values. Please do that. But do it as from the most whole place that you possibly can. And hopefully that becomes a place of love. Okay, let's take this into treatment. Oddly enough, I'm going to, hopefully there's no noise. For those of you who have no noise around you, I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you have noise in your background, don't do it. If you have quiet, please unmute. Just so we can energetically connect. So let us pray from wholeness on this day. Let us pray from a place of beauty, of power, of compassion, of love, of acceptance, of empowerment. Let us pray from a platform that is stunning beyond measure by being as whole as you and I can be in any given moment. Let us look out of our eyes through the veil of love, through the veil of acceptance. Let us recognize individuals who are fearful instead of thinking of them as ignorant. Let us look at the world and Mother Earth as doing what she needs to do right now to stay healthy instead of us thinking of it as so broken. Let us bring a new perception, a brand new perception to the entire world and the nation and this community and each other. Let us be the place where love resides now and always. Now and always. I believe in who we are. I believe in the power of the collective of this community. I trust in this moment. It is stunning beyond all measure. With gratitude for this moment and all that is, I surrender this word to love, to law, and to the awe of life. And so it is.